And as we heard earlier on Capitol Hill, the House passes the Save America Act. Joining us to discuss this is Jenny Beth Martin, honorary chairman of Tea Party Patriots Action and host of the Jenny Beth Show. And we have Robin Biro, Democratic strategist and former Obama regional campaign director. Thank you both so much for joining us today. Jenny, I would like to start with you today. You're currently in Washington, D.C. and have been there this whole week to work with members of Congress to get the SAVE Act passed. Why do you think it's important, in your view, that this act be passed and eventually signed into law?
Well, there are three reasons for it. One, it is very simple. It requires proof of citizenship to register to vote, which will ensure that only American citizens are voting in American elections. The 86% of Americans want this. It crosses party lines, racial lines, socioeconomic lines. Every American just about wants this. You can barely get Americans to agree on apple pie more than on this. And then the other thing that it does is it requires voter ID to go when you are actually voting. So the first one is when you register to vote, which is usually only a once every few years, maybe even a decade or more experience for people. And then when you go to vote, you show a voter ID, just like you do when you get alcohol or cigarettes or go to an airplane or so many other things that we do throughout our lives. And it began because in the state of Arizona, they require proof of citizenship, but because of the way the federal law is, they can't require it for federal elections. It's kind of messed up. So we're trying to fix a problem that the Help America Vote Act or the motor voter law created initially.
So, Robin, Jenny says Americans want this. Why are virtually all Democrats opposing this?
First of all, I want to congratulate Jenny Beth on getting this passed. It's a big accomplishment, and I want to recognize that. Why Democrats were opposed to it and still are opposed to it is because of perceived barriers to voting. Namely, as Jenny Beth said, this will not only require that you bring a state ID, but you have to bring another form of identification, be that a birth certificate or a U.S. passport. Now, passports are a little expensive. I looked it up, Don. It's $165 to register for a passport if you don't already have one. I was a little bit surprised to learn that 48% of Americans already have a passport, but that leaves 52% that don't. That could be a financial barrier to many people. $165 is a lot to some folks. You can also bring a birth certificate. The cheapest birth certificate is $10 if you don't already have one. They go on up to $35, like my state of Georgia. That could be a financial barrier. I wish that a state ID were enough. The reason that it's not enough is because 19 very liberal states allow non-citizens to get driver's licenses. I wish that we could just make that uniform so that only an ID could be enough, like Jenny Beth said, to, you do that at a liquor store, you should be able to use a state ID should be good enough to vote.
I like just to add that you can also use real ID as well. But Jenny Beth, can you respond to this, the barriers that Robin has pointed to?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. First, non-citizens can get a real ID. So a real ID alone does not does not say that you are a citizen. But the paperwork that you require for a real ID, which you have to get inside government buildings now, like Social Security offices, the paperwork for that is the same paperwork that we're talking about here. It is a birth certificate. You don't have to have a passport. If you have a passport, that works, but you don't have to have a passport. The bill also does set aside the ability that if you can have other evidence to prove that you are a citizen, you are able to attest that you are. So I think that that is going to be able to help overcome those financial objections and concerns that Democrats have expressed. So they've looked for ways to try to address some of the concerns, because what we want is to ensure two things. One, that only American citizens can vote, and to clean up the mess that is going on in Arizona right now. In the state of Arizona, if you show proof of citizenship to register to vote, you can vote from president all the way down to their lowest level, dog catcher, whatever the lowest thing on their ballot is. If, however, you have not shown proof of citizenship, you still, and this is a border state, you are still able to vote for president, Senate, and Congress. This has been challenged, gone up to the Supreme Court, and this is a solution that they've had to come up with because the Supreme Court said Congress has to fix this problem. That's that's why we started doing this, is to help fix a problem that Congress created, specifically in Arizona.
So, Robin, I hear your point that you brought up earlier, but at the end of the day, if polling shows that the majority wants voter ID, then shouldn't Democrats support it?
Yes, and I wish that we would be smart and use common sense about how we do this. I don't, for as long as I've been able to vote, I've always had to show ID, whether it was in the state of South Carolina that I grew up in or Georgia, where I currently live. I've never had a problem with that. I think that Democrats need to walk back that argument. But I do think that there needs to be, in Georgia, when you go to get a driver's license, you have to show proof of residency. That needs to be the same for all 50 states in the union. I have a problem as a Democrat with 19 states not requiring that. Like I said, my only issue, and I wish that Democrats would get on board with this, is that non-citizens can get state IDs and driver's licenses in 19 states. If we could just do that and make it so that a driver's license or state ID was enough, I think would be good. That's where we need to meet in the middle.
Okay, Jenny Beth, I brought a clip here with me that I'd like us to take a look of House Speaker Mike Johnson speaking about Senator John Thune. Let's take a look.
I trust that he is committed to it, and they're trying to figure out the right path. And I think talking filibuster is part of that discussion, and we'll see how it shakes out. So I would hope that there be some sensible Democrats there that would recognize, as one did here tonight, that this is a good policy and a good thing, and it's right. It shouldn't be a partisan issue.
Jenny Beth, Speaker Johnson brings up the filibuster. Your overall thoughts on what he said?
Well, right now, the way the bill is structured, it does not require 60 votes to bring it to the floor to begin debate on it. I really want to see debate on the bill. And I think it's very important to do that. It does not require any rules changes at all. It just would open up debate. There would be debate, and then debate would still eventually close. And there would be some sort of vote on the bill one way or the other. I think that it makes sense to do that. I think that it makes sense for the Senate to debate, period. And that should be part of, it was in the first 100 years of our country, the Senate used to have meaningful debate. And we've kind of lost that now with just calling it in with the 60 votes, the way that they are operating right now. The senators are right now going through trying to figure out what this means, because they haven't been in the Senate where there's the meaningful debate that Senator Lee and other people are calling for. And so they're trying to figure out, how does this work? How do you close it? What would it mean in the future? And that's fair. They're trying to understand the process. I get that. But I think that at some point they need to bring this bill to the floor, have a real debate on it, and then let's call the question and figure out where the Democrats stand. Do they stand with the American people or not? And Robin, I think you're a lot closer to supporting this bill than you realize. The real ID, like what we were just mentioning, the real ID, again, it's another federal law that all states have to comply with. So even with a real ID, if you are a permanent resident in this country, a lawful alien in this country who has a green card, you can get a real ID. And real IDs don't differentiate between citizenship or not in almost every single state in the country. So the change you're talking about probably would solve a lot of this, but this is looking at just going at a very tiny portion of the motor voter law. It's a 32-page bill.
Jenny Beth, thank you for clarifying that point on the real ID. Robin, what do you say?
I think she's right. I think we're actually, at the end of the day, I think that we're closer to meeting in the middle on this than many Americans realize. And Jenny Beth brings up a wonderful point that we need to have discussions like this. Thank you, NTD, for bringing the two of us on so that we can have a rational discussion. More of this needs to be happening all across the nation and in the halls of Congress so that we can start getting things done that matter to Americans. I think that is against our best interests as Democrats to be so vehemently opposed to this when over 80% of Americans support some sort of ID for voting. I just would like to clarify it so there's not a financial impediment, so that people, I want to make a point. I was on TV earlier this morning, and I said, when I said that it cost $165 to get a passport, and that could be a financial impediment, the other guest literally said, good, those aren't our voters. That's where I have a problem.
All right, I actually think, yeah, please.
Yeah, and I just want to be on the record, definitely don't agree with that. I want to make it easy to vote. I just want to make it hard to cheat and clear up these problems that the federal law has caused, especially in Arizona.
Well, all right. I actually think this is a very good point, a very good note to end the conversation on. So thank you so much today, Jenny Beth, Robin, for speaking with us.
Thank you for having us.